Good evening. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for February 12, 2018. Can I have a motion to go into executive session for the matters pertaining to the employment history of particular individuals and negotiations under the Taylor Law?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Can I have a motion to go back into public session?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for February 12, 2018. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance given by Jack and Ava, and then remain standing for a moment of silence for our armed forces and those in our community who have lost loved ones?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being patient with us. Dr. Hatter, I see Crompond has packed the room.
So this is an exciting night. Hello, all of my friends from Crompond. It's so great to see all of you tonight. And thank you to the parents for coming out and bringing your children here. So to the Board of Education, this looks like one of our most exciting good news presentations. You all know it's Olympics week, and we've begun with the Olympics, and Crompond has been celebrating the arrival of the Olympics in their own Crompond special way. So at this time, I'm going to call Crompond School Principal Dr. Roberts to the podium to introduce the good news presentation and the students.
Good evening, everyone, but we have to start with the Olympic sprint first. Thank you, Dana. Good evening, Dr. Hatter, Mrs. O'Shea, Mr. Cole, Mrs. Carbone, Mr. Mignani, and Board of Education trustees, and a very special welcome to Mrs. Roll. How wonderful to see you. We are honored to be sharing Crompond School's good news with all of you this evening. Our goals are to highlight how our work continually is focused on the Board of Education goals as outlined in Dr. Hatter's 2020 vision for 2020. The mission of the Yorktown Central School District focuses on providing our children comprehensive learning experiences that emphasize the education of the whole child. The work we are thrilled to share with all of you tonight focuses specifically on the areas of our mission which promote valuing diversity and global consciousness, developing an understanding of the importance of a healthy lifestyle and making good choices, encouraging moral conscience, promoting self-respect, and demonstrating respect for others. What better way for our lens to be centered on the mission of the Yorktown Central School District than with the Winter Olympics? On Friday, February 9th, we hosted an Olympic opening ceremony at Crompond School to share with our students the importance of global citizenship, self-respect, respect for others, healthy lifestyles, sportsmanship, and of course, valuing the beauty in others. We take every opportunity to weave the principles of esteem and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals into our work, and the philosophy of the Olympic Games supports these endeavors. To demonstrate the importance of this work, over the last few weeks, our special area teachers in art, library, music, and physical education partnered to create authentic learning opportunities around the Olympics with the goal of embracing our district's mission. The work to be presented this evening is designed by our teachers as we're continually thinking beyond the walls of the classroom and working collaboratively to provide our children with comprehensive learning experiences that promote the education of the whole child. What you will see in action this evening is our district mission. In Dr. Hatter's February newsletter, he stressed the importance of our small victories and how each victory has a major impact in the lives of others. We treasure each victory and embrace the importance of celebrating the individuality and efforts of all. This year's Winter Olympics are being hosted by South Korea, and their opening ceremony was titled Peace in Motion, centered on the importance of peace. Our work with eSTEAM and the UN Sustainable Goals provides us a forum to think critically and deeply about how our small victories have the power to create ripples which will positively impact others. Our Olympic activities officially started today across all specials as well as in our science lab. We proudly present our special area teachers, Mrs. Armstrong, Mr. Kreiner, Mrs. Richards, Ms. Silvestri, Mrs. Sattarelli, and Mr. Zeiler, and of course our fabulous 4th and 5th graders who will share the importance of embracing global awareness.
I want to be able to face everybody. Mrs. Sattarelli and I, we have our Olympic goals for Yorktown, but Olympic style. So here we go. So if you're listening to Dr. Roberts, now it's a little bit of Olympic style. The mission of the Yorktown Central School District Olympic style is to provide a comprehensive learning experience that emphasizes the mind and body of the whole athlete. We will achieve our mission by providing our Crampon athletes with the knowledge, skills, values, and positive attitude that they need to be competent, contributing, and compassionate world citizens as they participate throughout Olympic week and beyond. Our next goal is we will achieve our mission by learning about the host city and the people of Pyeongchang, South Korea, as to appreciate and value diversity to become more globally conscious citizens.
Throughout our Olympic week, we will develop the whole athlete by improving our individual and group potential, reinforcing a healthy lifestyle, fostering creativity, and encouraging our moral conscience. Crampon is going for the gold. It's best said by Lindsey Vonn, gold medalist in the downhill skiing event. Follow your dreams. If you have a goal and you want to achieve it, then work hard and do everything you can to get you there, and one day it will come true.
So if you look over here to our opening ceremony slide, on Friday we had our own Crampon opening ceremony. And how many people here actually saw the real opening ceremony on Friday night? All right, it was an amazing, amazing thing. Well, at Crampon, first period, we had an amazing opening ceremony, and we had a lot of Olympic music, and we talked about new events that were included in this year's Olympics for the winter at Pyeongchang, and also we took an Olympic oath, so it was a really special moment that we had. At this point, I would like to introduce Ms. Silvestri and her amazing musicians.
Thank you, Mrs. Armstrong. Good evening, everyone. I'm sure you're happy to know that I'm not going to make you guys sing tonight, although you do it so well. But this evening, I have, I forgot. Yeah, we wanted to move that so you can see the students because they're down low on their instruments. We have been working in music class to prepare a Korean folk song for you all. So we are I'm just going to turn it right over to the students, and I'm going to call up Metzi, who's going to tell you a little bit about the song.
Arirang is a Korean word that has no direct modern meaning. It is a Korean folk song that has been sung for more than 600 years and is considered to be the unofficial national anthem of South Korea.
Okay, at this time, some of our students, I'm going to have Maddie, Oliver, Ava, and David talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing leading up to Olympic Week in music class.
During music class, we have learned about Korean musical instruments. We were able to listen to these instruments and watch YouTube videos of Korean students playing them.
All 4th grade students learned to sing Arirang, and all 5th grade students learned to play the arrangement of Orth instruments, which we just played for you.
We also learned about John Williams, who wrote the Olympic fanfare and the theme as well for the music for movies such as Harry Potter, E.T., Jurassic Park, Jaws, and Star Wars.
Did you know that February 8th, the day this year Winter Olympics started, was John Williams' 86th birthday?
All right, and now I have Victoria and Hannah and Sarah, and they're going to talk to you about what we're doing this week during Olympic Week in music class.
During Olympic Week, we will be working with our classmates to escape the music room by completing 5 musical challenges.
The challenges will reinforce musical concepts that we have been learning in music class this year. As we complete each event, we will earn an Olympic ring. The first team to complete all 5 challenges and collect all 5 Olympic rings will earn a gold medal.
All right, thank you. And there's several different areas. We have a hockey challenge and a musical math challenge and a skiing challenge, and they have to find all the note values that add up to 1 beat and ski down the slope, and they have to find an ice skater who has to find her way around the rink by matching up the rhythms with the way to count them. So it's all reinforcing our musical our musical elements as we are celebrating the Olympics. So at this time, I'm going to bring up Mrs. Richards.
Yes, my girls. Thank you. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Victoria to talk to us about what the 4th graders have been creating in art to kick off the Winter Olympics.
In art, we all drew ourselves as participating athletes in the Winter Olympics. We included flags of our choice on our world athletes. I drew myself as a skier from Ireland. All the drawings were then made into paper quilts.
Thank you. And in 5th grade, I would like to talk to Caitlin and Ronnie.
In 5th grade, we had a choice. I created a Keith Haring-inspired graffiti athlete. I designed my figure using the colors of the French flag.
The other choice was to design the acronym ESTEAM using the Winter Olympics as the theme. I designed mine using the Olympic flag in the background, and the background of the Olympic flag was filled with flags from around the world. These 2 were made into paper quilts.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call up Mr. Kreiner.
I have the pleasure of having Sophia tell you about what we're doing in the library this week.
In library, we read a book called Dream Big, Little Pig. The book was written by Christy Yamaguchi, an American 5-time gold medalist in figure skating. The book tells the story of Poppy, a pot-bellied piglet with big dreams. She dreamed of being a ballerina, a singer, and supermodel. She finds out that just because you dream of being something doesn't make it easy to do. But Poppy is going to be famous somehow. She finally finds her talent and becomes the star of the rink when she tries ice skating. We learned that just because you are not good at one thing, you have to keep trying something new until you find out what you are good at.
I'm going to pass this along to the Phys Ed teachers. Done and done.
Okay, we have 2 amazing cromponders here. We have a fourth grader, Mia Reardon, and we have a fifth grader, Jack Simone. And they are going to read a little bit for us as we explain what we did in PE.
Winter Olympics in Physical Education.
We did a 4-man bobsled scooter race in the gym. And there's a couple of hints here, but we cannot tell you too much until later. You have to stay for the whole thing. And we have a lot of different events in our gym, but this is just one of the fun things that we did with 2 people riding on the bobsled and 2 people that are pushing and trying to steer it. So if you can imagine that in our gym.
World records are projected to be broken.
Physical education, Olympic snow shoveling, and speed skating.
We made up our own Olympic event, snow shoveling, as Jack said, and we're hoping someday it will be accepted into the Olympics, because we all do it, and we're getting pretty good at it with all the snow that we've had. But we're also doing speed skating, where we actually put cones on the kids' feet, or polydots, as you see in that picture, and they skate through a little course and try not to knock down the cones that we have set up. We will also be, and this is not in any of the slides, but later this week we're actually going to try our crampon style of curling. Has anybody heard of curling? So we're going to actually try that in the gym, so it should be interesting. We'll let your kids tell you how it goes. At this point, we are going to be taking the Olympic oath, the same oath that the Olympians took on Friday in Pyeongchang, and the same oath that your children took on Friday morning. And we would like everyone, including the board and the parents, to repeat after me after I say a line. So we're going to pretend like we're the athletes that are going to be competing. So if we could all stand and put up our right hand. In the name of all competitors, I promise that we shall take part in these Olympic Games, respecting and abiding by the rules that govern them, in the true spirit of sportsmanship, for the glory of sport, and the honor of our teams. Wonderful. Give yourselves a round of applause for that. Now here's Mr. Zeiler speaking about the bobsled.
All right, good evening. We have a couple of students that are going to demonstrate our bobsled, so we were able to get it set up over here for you. So we have Serena, Angelina, David, and Lindsay. And what they're going to do right now to simulate the start of our bobsled race, they're going to get down, they do 5 mountain climbers. And as soon as they're done with their 5 mountain climbers, 2 students will get on the sled, and the other 2 students will guide them down to the end of our track right here. So come on down. So they have to steer safely down, and we're going to get over the wires. Good. Uh-oh. Hold on. There you go, Dave. Hop back on. Okay, get back on. All right, and we go all the way down to the finish line right here. And then they hop off and they switch jobs. They do 5 more mountain climbers. And then they're going to switch and they're going to head back down the other direction. Thank you, Mrs. Sattarelli. All right, ready? And the front person does the steering. You may go, Dave. And the back person does most of the pushing. Let's see if we get over it this time. There we go. Perfect. Now, this is the part that we and the students have been waiting for. We want some help from the board members and some of the administrators. If they want to come and join us for one bobsled race. Any brave takers? Anybody? I don't know, Dr. Hatter, I think they, And Mrs. Banks, you want to join us? We'll do 2 people. That's perfect. Thank you, Mrs. Banks. All right.
Can I take my jacket or do I take
Perfect, Mrs. Banks. Thank you. Dr. Hatter, you're going to ride, I'm assuming? Or you're going to push? All right. So how about one of the students hop on? Serena, you want to hop on? All right. Are you ready? And they're off. Get up, Lindsay. And one more time, Mrs. Banks. Let's go back this way and we're good. We'll do one more time back to finish up. We got to go back. We only did half the race. Half the race, Dr. Hatter. There we go, Angelina. You can hop on. Linz. There we go. All right. Give them a hand. Thank you, Mrs. Banks. Thank you, Dr. Hatter, for participating. And I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Roberts. Thank you, students.
Wow. Thank you for taking the plunge, Dr. Hatter and Mrs. Banks. We really appreciate that. To show your good efforts, we do have something for all of you in the spirit of the Olympics. So, children, you want to deliver them to our Olympic champions. Right there.
Thank you. Oh, I love this.
So we are most certainly leading in gold medals at this point, that's for sure. Our work at Crampon is consistently focused on 5 key tenets, and we do have them up on the board. First and foremost, heart, empathy, mindfulness, of course our district's mission, and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which is weaved into all of our work. Mrs. Carbone, Mr. Mignani, and Board of Education trustees, we are honored and privileged to learn from each of you every single day. And I know you hear me say this at every board meeting, but I need to share with all of you that you truly are our role models, and we thank you for providing us a platform to do what we do for our children each day. Let's give our board a round of applause, please. And we certainly can't say that enough. Thank you to our staff for all that you do to positively impact our children. We really do have lots of fun at Crampon. We really are focused on educating the whole child. And will our staff please stand to be recognized? There's so many people here this evening. And I do really need to give a very special thank you to Mr. Flanagan and Mrs. Stern, because they really have helped with this process, and see Mr. Flanagan. The purpose of our work is always centered on our children, so we thank our children each day for their love of learning and for inspiring us to be the best that we can be. So our children need a resounding applause. And our parents always hear me say this. I say it in our weekly letter and any kind of communication that I have with our parents. But we truly are partners in education, and we thank you for sharing your most precious gifts with all of us. So we want to give you a round of applause as well. And of course, I can never end without saying, Dr. Hatter, Mrs. O'Shea, and Mr. Cole, thank you for your leadership. Our Crampon family is truly blessed to have you all leading us in Yorktown, and we wish all of you a very, very happy Valentine's Day.
Wow. That was great. Boys and girls, that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you for sharing everything that you're learning. For the teachers, there are so many Crampon teachers here. Thank you so much for coming out and giving of your time. Just know how deeply we all up here appreciate everything that you do. Thank you so much. What a great night. I learned a lot. I worked out. I'm about ready for bed.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really do appreciate your coming out. Your students are wonderful, as always, and the music is always incredibly great. So thank you so much. And we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are up to public comment. Is there anybody wishing to speak on agenda-related items? No? Okay, so let's go on to our education report, although I think that was a wonderful education report.
As much education as I could.
Don't make it cold in here. I'll get
So good evening. Mr. Leese and I are here to give you an update on where we are with data in action in the district. We're going to talk a little bit about supporting classroom instruction and student achievement. Some of you may recall at the end of last school year, we did a presentation for you in terms of data that we were using, particularly with the second grade classroom at the time, some common assessments we had developed, and using some of our software programs, how we were able to get the data to the teachers in a very quick turnaround time. You may remember we had Mrs. Dodona, one of our second grade teachers at the time, here last year to talk about her experience. So this is just an opportunity for us to share and to build on what we shared with you last year. So here's an overview of some of our district goals in terms of curriculum instruction and assessment. Any of the goals that we come up with as a department really focus on the board goals, and we always look long-term into where we want to see our district be down the line. Some of the goals that we were working on as we prepared this presentation are to evaluate student growth in kindergarten through 9th grade using the STAR assessments, to continue a consistent timeline for standards-based assessments that are linked to the K-5 modules for ELA and mathematics, and to develop a comprehensive district database decision-making plan. This work is not new to the district, and it's something that we have been involved in for quite some years and started with Dr. O'Connor back before 2014. The work that we do with curriculum instruction and assessment really involves not only the curriculum office but also the data office, and Mr. Leese and I work very closely together for a good part of the day in terms of supporting our teachers and supporting student growth. If you look at the timeline of the progression of where we've been with data over the last several years, our picture is really comprehensive. We started years ago with looking at STAR assessments K-8. We talked about standards-based report cards expanding at the elementary level. In 2015, we developed the first Common Core standards-based assessments in the form of an inventory, pre- and post-assessments, and we also looked at our K-12 alignment for the module work. In 2016 and 17, we began standards-based assessments in grade 2, which I was mentioning to you earlier. We looked at professional development around technology and data, and we also expanded our STAR assessments for our students into grade 9. This school year, what we really focused on as we finished last school year is where do we need to go in terms of a curriculum department, in terms of a data department? What do we really need to focus on so that we can be sure that our teachers have what they need, they have data that they can use to inform their instruction, and that we make it a simple process and a process that's understood by all of our educators. So one of our major goals for this year was to develop a formal data inquiry team at both building levels and district levels. So we're well on our way in that process, and we'll share that a little bit with you as we move forward. We're also looking into next school year. Where do we need to go as we see where we are now? Where do we need to go next school year? And part of the data process, when you're looking at data, is how do we involve students in understanding where they perform as learners? How do we involve them in the process of setting goals? And that's really going to be our journey into next school year, to continue to look at data analysis, but to do it with the lens of a student and involving them in that process. At this point in time, I'm just going to ask Mr. Leese, who has been very, very involved in this work for the last several months, to talk about the journey that has been our data inquiry team development over the last 4 months.
Thank you, Ms. O'Shea. And thank you this evening for the opportunity to come and speak with you all and share some of the work that we've been putting together and just building on over the course of time here. You can see over the course of this flow diagram how much work we've actually done. But for us, it's always about where do we need to go next and how do we keep building on what we've done and continue improving on what we're bringing to the classroom and how we're supporting our students. So when we talk about data, there are so many different data points, and we've all, from the beginning of time, had conversations coming together about data, but it's really about doing it in a meaningful and thoughtful way and implementing an inquiry-based process where we work together collaboratively, again, always focusing on the goals and the strategic plan of the district tied to the 2020 vision for 2020, and building a framework where we're all talking in a common language, where we have a common level of data literacy, and how we interact at the different levels, whether it be our lens from district office in setting strategic goals district-wide, and how that filters down into the buildings and how they look at the data and focus on specific needs for their building, to down to the grade level and looking at individual students. So when we put all that together, we want to make sure K-12, we're articulating our work in a way that's common to all of us, that's consistent, and that's well thought out and planned. And that's why we plan this process. And one of the first things that we did was to start coming together as a data team. Our first group was actually a K-5 cohort of data team members. So to this point, and in speaking with the goals, especially in goal 13 about developing this framework, we've identified specific data teams not only at the district level but at the building and grade levels, and we've come together K-8 now in formalized data inquiry team discussions. One of the first things we did was identify our purpose and come up with a shared common set of goals. And around that, this is where we stand in establishing ongoing collaborative team of educators to engage in inquiry-based discussions about student performance data, share and collaborate with grade level teams, incorporating collegial feedback and classroom evidence, behavior and social emotional components, always focusing on the whole child, engaging in collaborative conversations, developing specific shared instructional strategies that are research-based for maximizing student achievement, and holding ourselves accountable and measuring that work to make sure that we're attaining those instructional goals. Again, at the end of the day, it's through action, collaboration, and evidence-based work that will foster this student achievement. So what does that really mean? As we build this framework and put these structures in place, they become the foundation for establishing a culture of what we do and becomes part of our everyday practice. And it really creates an ecosystem of collaboration between students, teachers, parents, and district and building leaders in how we support all of our needs, not just as students, but as teachers and educators. How do we continue to grow so we can provide a rich, full program for our students, fulfilling all the supports and needs that they need? So that's the big picture and kind of balcony view of the idea of the work, but where does it meet the classroom? And this is a slide that we put together. This is part of the actual work of the data teams. As we've been meeting and starting to develop our data inquiry conversations, we start with our universal screeners, STAR assessments, and how do we use the reports within STAR to inform instruction and to help us in the classroom. There's so much information in STAR. What this does and what this has allowed us to do now as a team, and I did share a couple just so you can see what this is becoming, is a placemat for teachers, not only in communicating amongst each other, but in communicating with parents about specifically what types of reports are available to me, what information I get out of them, and what I can use them for in informing my instruction and building capacity in my classroom. As always, like I said, we're always looking to move forward and dig deeper into the data and take things to the next level. So as we continue to build capacity in STAR, our conversations have really transformed to more inquiry-based discussions about implementing specific skill-based strategies for supporting all students. And how do we do that? We do that by looking at the reports not only from a score or a number, but moving away from the score and number and looking at the underlying standards and skills that our students need and the trajectory of where they are in meeting mastery of those skills on not only New York State assessments, but college and career readiness. One of the challenges that we all have, we're preparing our students for problems that we don't even know exist yet. So how can we best arm ourselves in being able to be prepared for them, and this is how we do that. But with anything else, we never look at one data point. We're always triangulating our data and looking at multiple sources. We do that through various types of assessment. With any type of assessment, they're there for a purpose. So we may use formative assessments, things that happen more frequently, whether they be within units, whether they be within a lesson itself, or just something quick on the way out the door so I know that you understood what we talked about today. It's real-time data that I can use to make immediate adjustment to my instruction and what I'm doing. Moving to more interim-based assessments like the STAR, we do multiple times a year to get benchmark data. And then ultimately with the summative assessments, which are our culminating assessments, like the state assessments or the Regents exams. All of these pieces come together and give us very important information on how we need to drive our instruction. So when we use these pieces, different pieces of assessment data, we have the state data. That's always our big picture view. We start there. We drill in deeper with the STAR data. And as we've mentioned before, using eDoctrina, this is a tool that has become very powerful for us. So we're, as teachers and educators, able to identify gaps, identify areas where we can continue to build and move forward, and now design in real-time assessments to measure those standards and skills so we can affect change real-time and when it's relevant most relevant for students and their learning in the classroom. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Mrs. O'Shea.
So much of the work that we do, and earlier Dr. Roberts mentioned the 2020 Vision Plan. When we're looking at the 2020 Vision Plan for our district and for our students, we're really talking about the importance of making sure that our students leave us understanding how to think critically about many, many issues that they'll be exposed to as adults. And in order to do that, we really need to make sure that we are providing opportunities for them. So we are providing and exposing students to learning that allows our students to make connections to that curriculum, to develop and create their own meaning and understanding around that information. Then it's our role as educators to assess that understanding and then to look at the data that we get from that assessment and really change our instruction so that it's data-informed instruction and continue that cycle that goes from student-centered, student-teacher collaboration, teacher-driven, teacher leader, and student ownership. There's so much of that process that really is a connection between what is the curriculum our students should be learning, what types of instructional opportunities are we providing for our students, and how do we know that they are attaining that information, and if they are not, how do we change what we're doing to make sure that they have every opportunity to become masters of their learning. So this whole process and the work that we've been doing in the buildings has really been to facilitate this work and to make this part of our process and part of our culture. Here's just some visuals, some pictures of our students who are performing and looking at data. They're being assessed. They don't even know it in a lot of cases. They're doing things on the computer. The teacher's doing informal assessments. All of this takes a strong meaning in terms of what does that look like in terms of what our students are learning. Does anyone have any questions for us regarding our data process or our data inquiry teams?
Oh, thank you. You always come with a lot of information when you bring David Lees with you.
I know. We spend a good amount of our time together with the work that we do because it is so interrelated, and you can't have curriculum without having data and assessment and vice versa. So a lot of what we do is collaborating, and not only with David and myself, but with the building principals and our teacher leaders in the various buildings.
Before I open it up for questions, I just want to make one comment. We have come so far with data from where we started, how many years ago, Pete, you remember, Mike? We were just, in the beginning, it was like nothing. And now where we see where you guys are, it's incredible what you're doing with it and how you're embracing it and engaging it and using it for students' use. So I'm so proud of what you've done. So thank you. So Pete, do you have a question?
And Jack, it's your point. If you go back 8 years ago, data was a word that we rarely used. And when I look at this, one of the things is that how is the acceptance of using the data been with the staff, with everyone, and how has it been really accepted?
So I think that, our staff, of course, they're wonderful educators, and they certainly see the value in the information they can gain from doing quality assessments with students. Like anything that we roll out, so for example, the STAR assessments, we had to really play with those assessments for a couple of years till our teachers really felt comfortable with the reports that we were able to provide some quality professional development so they understood what the reports were showing. And it's really quite interesting to see our own teachers making connections in some of our meetings and conversations around data, and it has become certainly a culture change for us over the last several years in terms of talking about it. So we look at it, and when we talk about STAR, and that's kindergarten through 9th grade, but we have our high school, they're looking at their Regents results, and they're looking at error analysis that you might, where a number of our students might have gotten one type of a question wrong on a Regents exam, and that would inform our instruction for the following year that maybe we needed to work on that skill a little further. So I do feel that our teachers see the value and certainly welcome this information, and I believe that we share the message that one piece of data is not going to give you a clear picture of any child, and it really is what do they see in the classroom, what do their formative assessments tell them, what does a test like a Regents exam tell them, and really to come with their own, their voice is welcomed in that.
Well, I just think it's great, because I look at data like technology. There's a learning curve to understanding it and moving forward. It's good to hear that people are starting to embrace it and understand it and move forward with it.
There's a trust that has to be embedded there, that they feel that the information is meaningful and that they understand what it is telling them in terms of a complete picture of the student.
Thank you. Mike?
I guess along the same lines as what Pete was asking, but from a different perspective, the students. I know one of the things that I saw was the ability for them to maybe self-assess or do some self-learning from the data that they get. But what's the practicality of being able to implement that? What does that look like?
So actually at the one of our earlier district curriculum council meetings, we read an article that had to do with orchestrating a move to more student-driven instruction. And that started some conversation that has carried over into the buildings in various ways. It could be something as simple as an elementary teacher who is doing a reading workshop model with the students in her class and is listening to her student read, making some judgments on how that child is reading, asking some follow-up comprehension questions, and recognizing perhaps that the student is weak in plot and setting, comprehension and understanding a plot and setting of a story. So it really becomes an opportunity for that teacher to conference with that student and say, I recognize this is a little tricky for you. Perhaps here's a strategy that can work, and the strategy might be, let's do a picture walk, and I'm going to write a note for you to do a picture walk the next time you're doing independent reading. And this child becomes part of understanding where they need to improve. Not that something is impossible, but it might just be tricky. And the same can go right through all the grades in any of the content area. It becomes just cluing our students in on what could be an area that the teacher would like to see some growth, and it's also involving the student in an opportunity to self-reflect and say, this is hard for me, or this strategy worked, but I'm not quite getting it in another area. If we don't allow our students to have voice, they're not going to take ownership in their learning. So we need to move in that direction.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Rashmi?
So I think I need a little help reading slide 7. It's the one with the that says data inquiry using STAR reports. Are these different reports that are accessible based on the STAR assessments, or how does that work?
Is this the slide?
No, it's this one.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
David, you want to handle this? David created the chart.
So in the context of this, what we created for ourselves is almost like a utility, a guide for us as teachers and educators to quickly, depending on what we're looking for in terms of the classroom, if we're looking at overall, how are my students performing, or how can I set up my strategy groups or my instructional reading groups within my classroom based on how they're performing and their reading skills. Each of these different reports serves a different purpose for us and helps us answer a different question. So as a team, we came together and said, boy, wouldn't it be great if we had a resource that quickly outlined for us some of the primary reports that we have available to us, what we can get out of them and how we can use them. So collectively, we put this together on our own, and these are all based on reports that are within STAR.
Got it. Thank you. Carol?
And if I could actually
go
just
ahead.
take a minute to go back to Mr. Mignani's question. Anytime we have an opportunity to tie the data to student learning and give them the opportunity to make their own connections with it, it becomes very powerful. So the conversation really transitions from, this is what I observed, and this is what you need to do, to, wow, this is an area where I can improve, and they own that learning then. They become the researcher. They make those connections based on their own experiences, their own prior learning, and how it's meaningful to them. So they're making their own connections to the learning and to the content.
True. Actually, on the same slide, so I guess you have, I see on the bottom it says inquiry, moving towards theory of action. I guess you would pull together all of the data. Can you further define a little bit and tell us a little bit more about what theory of action would mean and what that would look like?
Of course. So when we say we're sitting down and talking about data, we're not having a discussion about what we feel, but it's really evidence-based and a research-based process where we're taking a hard look at the data. We're developing theories about why we're having issues and where we're having issues, but then there's a whole level of accountability of implementing specific strategic steps and specific action plans with measurable outcomes. So we're assessing ourselves on whether or not what we thought was the issue, we tried an intervention, did it work? And if not, where do we need to adjust? So it moves away from just sitting around having an informal conversation around data, and it puts a process with accountability there for us that ultimately leads to student achievement.
Please.
So I think you started to touch on what my question was, and I'm looking at the data progression timeline, and you started this process in 2014, and you're leading up into 2019. And my question was really, you talked about a lot of assessment for the children. Have you sat down and looked at where you started in 2014 and where you envisioned it going in 2019 and where we are now, beginning of 2018? And are you where you expected to be? And if not, why? And are you on track to where you want to be?
So in terms of the journey that we're on, the journey is going to change and evolve as we're continually assessing our capacity and our sustainability across the district. So when we're looking at how do we get to, I'm going the wrong way, how do we get to this slide where we have a systems-wide focus for looking at data, we've been doing it in chunks, and we've been doing it very strategically over the last number of years. And what David, myself, the principals, Dr. Hatter, when we talk about our practices, we're continually revising our action plan for moving us forward in a very thoughtful and strategic way. Are we where we need to be? No, because we're not. We want to make sure we have process and procedures in place that will not be dependent on people, but be dependent on a process that's embedded, so if the people change, the process is still in place. So we do still have work to do to get there. I think, you know, we get so excited about things that are moving in the right direction, and David had a meeting this afternoon at Brookside where he came back to the office and it was wow, you know, a pat on the back of where we needed to be. I think I'll let him share a little bit about that, but in terms of are we there yet? No. It really is about building capacity. It's making sure that we're all on the same page, that we're talking data literacy, using the same vocabulary, having the same understanding of what that means, and bringing our students along in the process. And as new assessments are thought, different ways that we can figure out where our students are will change sometimes our direction. But right now we're focused on our staff's understanding and capacity for utilizing data and how we're assessing students so that those assessments really target the standards and skills we need to know where our children fall. So we've got a ways to go, but I think that every step that we're taking brings us closer and closer to what will maybe be an unidentifiable end. Do you want to talk about the Brookside experience?
Sure. I had the opportunity to work with the grade 3 data team earlier today, and even to go back to your question, Mr. Bisaccia, of how are the teachers embracing this work. Before anything, we're always teachers. So just as a teacher in the classroom who makes that connection to that one student and you see them light up, the conversations that are happening in these groups, while we may have started the ball rolling, they have really are starting to take that ball and continue it going and build momentum. The conversation, and watch them have a conversation, looking at the data, taking that chart and accessing those reports, but then the conversation quickly transforms into, oh, I see exactly how I can group my students, and these are the strategies that I'm going to work on because I have a specifically prescribed skill set that group needs, and that's how I'm going to inform my instruction. So the excitement and the engagement in this work is really encouraging. And the more we do it, just like anything else, it's beginning to spread like a wildfire because the more they talk amongst each other. And again, when we talk about this, just as we would expect from our children as we develop behaviors that promote learning, for us, these are behaviors that promote learning for not only ourselves, but for our students. And they become practices that are just naturally occurring on an everyday basis. And that's where we'll be when we talk about implementing these structures. We're really talking about how do we support the entire system and sustain that, and this is how you do that with this type of work.
So can I build on that? Because that was in a grade 3. We're trying to do this district-wide. So it's ambitious, it's a huge undertaking. How do you intend, or how are we going to make this a district-wide process?
I can answer that.
Let me just do, so if I could just come back to this slide a minute and share a little bit more. In your lower right, you're looking at kindergarten classes who are already engaging with the technology to do assessments and turn around their data in the classroom. In the upper right, you're looking at a 10th grade English honors class who's using that, and that's where Mr. Mignani, we're making those connections where the students are going on. They're accessing their reports and they're making connections to where they can improve. And then in grade 2, so we're slowly expanding into the grades K-12, and we're approaching it from multiple fronts. And as we mentioned before, the more this takes foot, the more quickly it's spreading and more people are wanting to embrace this because it's very exciting work, quite frankly.
And when we look at our administrative team as a whole, this is something that all of the administrators are very invested in. So there are, in every building, this work is taking place, and it might be more, happening more in a particular department just because that's where our focus has been, but it is something that is expanding through all of our departments and all of our grade levels.
Perfect. Any other questions? Everybody good? Thank you so much. We always learn so much when you guys are here about data. Thank you, thank you. All right.
Take this for me.
Oh, we got another presentation. Now we're up to the budget.
Before we go to the main event for tonight, which is our presentation, or our next installment in our budget presentation, I just wanted to share a couple of items of good news with our community and with our board. So our Yorktown High School bands had their annual swing dance, and if you thought my athletic prowess was on display just now in the bobsled, you had to see me ping-ponged around the dance floor on Saturday night. It was no, I don't know if you'd call it that per se. I was on the dance floor physically, and
Did you take the lesson?
no, that didn't happen. But I was there, and it was a great time. The students did such a wonderful job in their performances. They were absolutely wonderful. I wanted to share an accomplishment on the national level by one of our seniors, Jacqueline Stochel. She is a senior here. She's a part of the science research program, and she chose to conduct migraine research. And she conducted her research at New York Medical College in Valhalla, New York, and she focused on chronic migraine headaches and the long-term neurological effects that it has on one's health. And she discovered that when left untreated, recurring migraines can have a harmful concussion-like effect on the brain and that has not been revealed in previous research studies. So in October, she submitted a research paper to the American Academy of Neurology. The paper was reviewed by a panel of physicians and scientists who are actively engaged in the work, and after 2 phases of review, she was awarded the 2018 American Academy of Neurology Research Prize. Now, in her notification email, she is one of 4 recipients of one of these national honors across the country. There's a monetary award that comes with this, and it also affords her the opportunity to present her research at the 70th Annual American Academy of Neurology meeting that will be held later this year in Los Angeles, California. And in an email that Jackie wrote to me yesterday, she writes, "I am so happy I could represent the Yorktown Central School District and further promote the message of esteem." And she is a lovely young lady. I wish her nothing but the best in her travels to Los Angeles, and she's representing the Yorktown School District on a national level, which is some accomplishment. So congratulations to Jackie.
Impressive.
Sure. One more piece of impressive news. So the National Merit Scholarship Program, there are 1.6 million students who participate across 22,000 high schools, and fewer than 1% of students are selected as finalists. This year, Yorktown has 3 finalists. That is just almost unheard of for a school our size. That is such a wonderful accomplishment. So Joseph Sabrario, Connor Kelsch, and Rory O'Brien were selected as National Merit finalists. They'll learn more about their status in this award in the coming months, and we certainly wish them well as well. So congratulations. So many wonderful things happening across the district, and we're just honored that we can support that work. And the support of the work comes from our budget, and that's just a perfect segue into this evening's presentation that Mr. Cole will deliver on debt service and transportation. So, Mr. Cole?
Exciting
Thank you,
ones.
Dr. Hatter. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's presentation is our 3rd in our 7-part budget series. In the following slides, we'll discuss the status of the district's debt service and transportation services. This chart reflects the anticipated schedule of debt service payments for the next 10 years. In the current school year, 2017-2018, the bonds issued to finance the 2001 district-wide capital projects will mature. Note the significant drop in expense, just under $2.8 million, into the 2018-19 school year as a result. After June 30th this year, the only debt remaining will be the bond issues used to support the 2006 district-wide capital projects. Without any new borrowings in the coming years, the Yorktown Central School District will be on a path to be completely debt-free within the next 10 years. Our Capital Reserve Fund, established by the voters in May of 2017, will be the primary financial vehicle we use to fund capital projects in the near term. As a reminder, the voters approved a capital reserve not to exceed $12 million in total funding for a period not to exceed 10 years. The reserve has 2 significant benefits to taxpayers. It provides a source of funding for building and facility improvements without the need to further raise taxes, and eliminates the interest expense on money that would otherwise be borrowed. In a time of rising interest rates, the fund will be a valuable tool to save taxpayers money. Here's the line-by-line cost estimate for the debt service budget in 2018 and 19. As mentioned earlier, the maturing 2001 bond issue will reduce the budget by just under $2.8 million. As the 2006 bond issue continues to be paid down, we can expect savings in this section of the budget year after year. All of the debt that can be refinanced has been refinanced to this point. Given the upward trajectory of interest rates in recent weeks, we do not expect to have any new candidates for refinancing anytime soon. In total, the debt service expense declines by nearly $2.8 million, or just under 43%. Next, we'll discuss transportation. The Yorktown Central School District employs a 4-tier bus system. That's to say that we have 4 distinct cycles to our daily runs. In the mornings, the high school students are transported first, then the middle school students, Crampon School, and last, the K-3 schools, Brookside and Mohansick. In the afternoon, for dismissal, the same cycle takes place. The 4-tier cycle takes just under 3 hours to complete,
We utilize 71 buses of varying sizes. The district provides home-to-school transportation for Yorktown students attending our public schools, private schools within the mileage requirements established by the State Education Department, and students attending special education programs outside of our school district boundaries. We expect total transportation costs to increase by just over $200,000. We anticipate contractual expense to decline by $4,925 as we subscribe to a new weather warning service that is approximately 1/3 the cost of the previous vendor. Diesel fuel is expected to increase based on the commodity price. Current New York State contract prices for diesel fuel are hovering approximately 60 cents per gallon more expensive than this time in the last year. The increase in this line reflects the concern for potentially higher prices. Our contract with Baumann & Sons Bus Company is expected to rise by $200,000. Our contract with the company limits rate increases to the prevailing rate of inflation for transportation as published by the state of New York. We do not anticipate having to add any new buses for the 2018-19 school year. Just a reminder of the budget presentation series dates. The fourth presentation in our series will take place on February 26th. Topics of the discussion that evening will be a review of the tax cap calculation, anticipated state aid, and the district's cash reserve status. We thank you for your attention, and we'll be more than happy to take your questions at this time.
Thank you, Tom. Debt service is always my favorite. But I do want to make one comment. It's very telling when you look at the way that you break up the budget and you have the debt service, you have the principal and the interest, and our declining interest rate, we're paying almost all principal on it, which is a really wonderful idea.
As an example, part of that, because we borrowed the money for the 2006 bond issue in pieces, one of the pieces was a 2012 issue of $9.3 million. We're paying about 1.5% interest on that.
And what's current rate now?
Well, the current rates, if you go out into the market, I'm sure are going to approach or exceed 3%.
So we've done really well. Thank you. Lisa, do you want to start with questions?
Yeah, I have some questions about the buses.
Sure.
So you mentioned the Baumann buses, you expect it to go up 200,000. I have a few questions. So I'll just throw the questions out and then you can answer.
Sure.
One, is that a normal increase? Two, when does that contract expire? And do we, when the contract expires, have we considered going with someone different than Baumann? Some of our neighboring districts have their own buses. Have we considered that option, having our own buses, a different bus company, the effects of having our own buses versus a different bus company versus staying with Baumann? Throw all those options out there for you.
Sure. First two I'll answer very quickly. The third one, we'll have a little bit of a dialogue. So the increase itself is standard. The negotiation of the contract extension that took place a couple of years ago limits the increase to the rate of inflation that's published by the state of New York. So that is a standard increase. It is the first time in a while we're not having to add buses because we believe that we'll be able to, especially with some out-of-district placements, remove a few buses which will support any new buses that we have to add into the standard home-to-school runs. The second question, I'm sorry, was?
When the contract expires.
Contract expires in June of 2019. Now, we have in the past, about 2 or 3 years ago, through the Financial Advisory Committee that Mr. Magnani chairs, we looked into whether or not, number one, we should rebid the contract to get other vendors to bid on the contract, or number two, bring the transportation in-house. So let me start with the latter first. The first thing that we would need to do, based on the consultant that we brought in to talk about these items, first thing we'd need to do under that scenario is purchase a piece of land. We do not have an area large enough that we currently own to be able to house all the buses and be able to put up a shop for the mechanical needs of buses and to store the buses. So we'd have to find an appropriate piece of land that would be zoned appropriately for us to do that. We did identify 1 or 2 parcels the last time we looked at this, and they were on the expensive side, and the infrastructure cost would be significant. The other piece was whether or not we should go out to bid or should we renegotiate with our existing contractor. And one of the things we found in the same process was that the Bauman and Sons Bus Company owns the only lot in our school district that is appropriate for housing school buses. Then they own it. They don't lease it, they don't rent it, they own the parcel. For another company to come in to try to competitively bid and get a significantly lower price would be difficult because their buses would have to be stored off the limits of the school district, which would be expensive. So it was decided that the options would be to rebid or to negotiate. The last time we rebid the contract, which was about 2002, our prices escalated by 20% because the number of bus companies able to bid on our service were very limited, and we saw escalating costs. Based on all this input, the Financial Advisory Committee, we did some analyses, some what-if analyses, and we determined that the best course of action would be to renegotiate. And when we renegotiated the existing contract, we were able to get some concessions, especially on the athletic side, and we were able to limit the cost of increases to CPI, and that's how we got here now. So we continue to look at those things. There are so many variables involved that it would entail quite an investment for the school district. Mike, did you remember the situation the same way, or is there anything you wanted to add on that?
No, that's exactly right. We've looked at this a couple of times, at least in the last 10 or 12 years, and it's very difficult even for, as Tom mentioned, even for an outside company to come in. They either have to be able to bring buses from somewhere else, or they themselves have to purchase a piece of land in town and house buses there. And when you factor all that in, it becomes very difficult for anybody else to really be competitive in a bidding process. So we will look at it again. There's no question, come next year. And we'll see, if anything changes. So if anybody's interested in opening a bus company, there's certainly an opportunity there. But it's a big proposition. It's a lot of money. We pay a lot, but it's a tremendous operation to own and operate all those buses and house them and hire the drivers and the insurance and the maintenance, and it's just very, very big and very expensive.
Cheryl?
Yeah, one of the things that we had talked about last year was how you reorganized the transportation office. Could you talk a little bit about how that went and remind us about what changes took place and what the effect that was on us and how things are going with that?
Sure, I'd be glad to. We looked at transportation and the size of the department and the volume of informational requests that go through the department, and it's huge. We decided that some support was needed in the department, and that there needed to be a more autonomous department. So we elevated the existing person who was in a clerical position in that department for the last 20 years to the coordinator position. Patty Sauber is just a wonderfully talented person and is remarkable at her job, and she's now the coordinator. And then we reassigned a clerical position from the high school based on a report that was done by an efficiency report that we had, which indicated that there was some overlap there, and we took that position and moved it into transportation. And that transportation position now supports the coordinator's position and handles initially a lot of the inquiries. What we found was quite stunning. The number of issues that rose to the level of the assistant superintendent and the superintendent were cut dramatically. A lot of the issues were handled within the first day, they were handled timely, and the coordinator does a good job with coordinating the aspects of the inquiries to the district policy and procedures. So we found that it's had a remarkable impact, and we're very pleased with the reorganization.
Great, thank you.
Tom, I think it might be beneficial for the community to know and just be reminded of our credit rating and which agency rates us and any other details you want to share.
Sure. We've been rated by Standard & Poor's, and we currently maintain a AA+ credit rating. Our credit rating increased in the throes of the last financial crisis based on our level of reserves, our ability to manage budget, and some of the forward thinking and planning, especially through the Financial Advisory Committee. The rating agencies found that very attractive. So we consider ourselves to be in very healthy financial shape. And when we did have to go out into the market to borrow money, as I said previously, we borrowed at very low rates because we're considered a very good credit risk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, although in the past, obviously, you mentioned we've been able to borrow at low rates, and we feel those rates are rising right now in the economy. Can you, I don't know if we've ever really quantified what the impact is of the capital reserve fund, and how much would that save us in interest over the years? Do we have an idea of that?
So assuming that we borrowed the $12 million that would be in the capital reserve, we have looked at that, and if we assumed a 4% interest rate over a 15-year period, I believe that we're saving somewhere between $3 and $4 million in interest expense. And that's after receiving aid on the debt service, assuming every dollar is aidable at 50.9%, which is our aid, and that never happens, by the way. So it's a very conservative estimate, but it's a great deal of money that's being saved.
Great.
Back to the transportation. Tom, you said that with regards to diesel, that it's been steadily rising, and we're anticipating it for next year too.
Yes.
Does that have any effect on this year's spending? Will we still be able to maintain our budget even though what we budgeted for diesel this year, or?
Yes, because we didn't appreciably decrease the diesel line, the diesel fuel line in the current year budget. We did decrease it, but not dramatically, because we realized all commodity prices, as you look into the future, have a tendency to fluctuate. So we're going to be fine this year. And we only pay up to a set limit. With the way transportation consumption for fuel works is that we plan all of our routes on a routing system, and we know down to the last tenth of a mile how many miles our buses are going to travel. And then each type of bus, a 65-passenger bus, a 20-passenger bus, has a schedule of fuel consumption. We only pay the fuel associated with the miles that the buses are driving our routes. All the other fuel is paid by the bus company itself. So we know exactly what our liability is in any one year, and it's just the commodity price that is the fluctuating variable.
Which would lend itself, if another company came in from the outside, we'd be paying somewhere dead miles for the company to get their buses from wherever they're stored to here.
That's what makes it prohibitively expensive, and they're actually called deadhead miles. That's exactly right.
Can I just ask one more? What is our state aid for transportation?
Right now, I believe it's in around 40 cents on the dollar. So most of the costs that are related to the contract itself, and then pieces of the administrative cost of the transportation department are also aidable. That's why when we get to the state aid portion of our presentations in this series, you'll see an increase in the transportation aid line, not for any reason other than our costs are escalated this year, and then projected for next year, the aid will be greater on those dollars spent.
Yeah. Good. I want to go back to the debt service. When we looked at the chart of the declining debt, so this year it drops off, but then it looks like it flatlines for several years. Can you explain why that is?
Sure. Because we borrowed money for the 2006 bond projects, which were just completed, including the XL money that was available years ago, in 6 individual pieces. For the next 5 years, those pieces will all be actively serviced, meaning we'll have to pay them. But in year 6, the first piece drops off, and that's where you see the step down. In year 7, another piece drops off, and then and so forth. So for the next 5 years, our debt service will not go up. That's a good thing. And then eventually it starts to go down, and then rather rapidly, and then we're at 0. And that's where we hope to be. And that's where we're planning to be. That's not saying that there's something won't come up that we have to address, but our long-term plan, as Dr. Hatter, Lisa, and I have discussed with the Financial Advisory Committee, is to get to zero, so that, just as with this year's budget, for every dollar decrease in debt service is another dollar available for instruction, and that's the way we look at it.
And if we were to put in a bus garage, we would have to go and bond that entire process and
Yes.
bond the buying the buses, and
Yeah.
then we're back into debt service again. It's a circular. Anybody else have any more questions? You all good? Thank you
Thank you
very
all very
much.
much.
Again, thank you
Thank
for
you.
your hard work. Yes, great job. All right. We just have personnel agenda to get through. Okay. Upon recommendation of the superintendent, a motion that the following be approved. These are our extra credit, our salary lane changes for certified personnel. And I think that, and then we have co-curricular amendments to the co-curricular units. We have a leave of absence for Rebecca Bronzy, and we have resignations for the purpose of retirement, Tom Arduini and Karen Profita.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Head Ron.
Just want to say thank you to Tom and Karen for their years of service, 14 and 17 years respectively. They've been such an integral part of the district. I've gotten to know them and have grown quite fond of them in the short amount of time that we've worked together. I wish them well in retirement. We'll certainly miss them, but I wish them well.
Yes, they're both wonderful people. Okay, so we're up to board reports. Cheryl, we'll start with policy.
I don't think we had a meeting since my last update, so basically our next meeting is tomorrow morning, so I'll be able to give you another update at our next Board of Ed meeting.
All right.
So that's it.
Fiscal advisory.
Actually, Fiscal Advisory Committee met last on January 30th, where we met with the administration to provide some guidance and context on our ongoing teacher negotiations, and it was very productive.
Perfect, and we'll probably have to meet at some point soon
We
because
will.
of the budget. All right, audit. We haven't met.
We're still sorting out the audit committee.
Okay. Poor committee, that's like the stepchild. Go ahead, Tom.
We will be interviewing external auditors. We've narrowed the respondents down to 2 finalists, and we're meeting on the night of March 6th.
Okay.
And then that committee's going to make a recommendation to the Board of Education.
Okay, and now, you had actually sent all of us copies of their
Yes.
RFPs. So if you would just, you don't have to do it publicly, if you could just send us, everybody, an email with the 2 that are down to, because then it would be easier for people, they don't have to go through 4, they can go down to the 2
Very
that
good.
they're up to, right? Okay, and then we're up to steering committee. Steering actually did meet, but I don't know if we had a meeting since they met. But we are looking actively at the capital projects right now. We're trying to get some costing on it. The intent is to try and understand costs, work with the attorneys to understand the process for taking the money back out again. And the plan is to come probably, I think we said March, to the board with a presentation about what we want to do and the options for proceeding. So the plan is to do that in early March because we believe we have to get onto the cycle for getting notices in March at some point. But Margot will get back to us with that, correct? So that's where we stand with steering. So I think we got all of them. We're up to minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for the January 22nd meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Treasurer's report, a motion to approve the treasurer's report for January 2018?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Claims audit. Motion to approve the claims audit report for January 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Lots of exceptions. Are we getting a process into,
We
I know
are.
we're working on it.
It's an ongoing process, and this is a new auditor as well, so he's on an interim basis. But rest assured that we are addressing every single one of these issues.
It's so nice now that we have someone who actually gives us the right report so we know what's going on. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Extra classroom activity report, motion to accept the extra classroom activity report for January 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Business office. Tom, you got a lot here. A motion, it's resolved that the Board of Education of the Yorktown Central School District appoint the following individuals as election inspectors for the 2018 annual school district election and budget vote to be compensated at a rate of $11 an hour. We name them below. Resolved that the Board of Education of the Yorktown Central School District appoint Jenny Menton Grasso and Rose Thornton to serve as the Board of Registration inspectors for the 2018 annual school district election and budget vote to be compensated at a rate of $11 an hour. Resolved that the Board of Education of the Yorktown Central School District appoint Robert Cohen, Leslie Benedusi, Judith Bloom to serve as the election inspectors for the 2018 budget vote and election to be compensated at a flat rate of $225. Resolved that the Board of Education appoints Joanna Jordy to serve as the assistant clerk for the 18 election. Resolved that the Yorktown Central School District appoints Jackie Carbone as the permanent chairperson. You note that there is no compensation.
But permanent is good. We like permanent.
Yeah, I know, so you don't have to do it. Resolved that the annual school district meeting, including the budget vote and board election of the Yorktown Central School District, New York, be scheduled for Tuesday, May 15th, 2018, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. at the Mohansick Elementary School. Be it further resolved that the registration for the 2018 election and vote will be held on Monday, May 7, 2018, in the lobby of the Mildred E. Strang Middle School between the hours of 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. And be it further resolved that absentee ballots for the election of members of the Board of Education and the adoption of the annual budget will be provided in accordance with Section 2018A of the Education Law. And be it further resolved that the district clerk shall give notice as prescribed by law of the time and place of holding the annual meeting and election vote on the annual budget, and may amend the notice of the annual meeting as in her discretion may be necessary. You have a motion?
So moved.
Second discussion.
Go ahead.
Board seats.
Yes, we have that. We have nominating petitions are available. There are 3 seats open.
That's what I was asking.
Yes, Pete, Lisa, and I all have open seats.
Okay, terrific.
And there are nominating petitions are available by contacting Yvette Siegel, our district clerk. They are due to the district clerk by April 16th at 5 p.m. And if you want any questions about voter registration or absentee ballots, Yvette is the person to call. 243-8199. Can I have a
Perfect.
second?
I second.
You second it? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Thank you. We have some budget transfers. Can I have a motion to approve the budget transfers listed below?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The trailer. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby amends the resolution approved at the December 18, 2017 board meeting authorizing the disposal of certain surplus equipment, the mobile trailer, via Auctions International, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education declares that such surplus equipment has no value and authorizes the sale of such surplus equipment to the Yorktown Police Department for the sum of $1, provided that the Yorktown Police Department shall assume responsibility for the removal of the mobile field construction trailer at no cost to the district.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Go ahead.
So what happened? We couldn't sell it and?
No, they actually asked for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
the police department approached us with interest in the trailer, and they have intentions on using it for training purposes. So they're really excited about gaining the trailer.
Okay.
And I want to put it on YouTube as they try to get it out.
They're very creative.
It's gonna
I wouldn't put it past them. Okay.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they're wonderful people who can do it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I'm glad it's going, and I'm glad it's going to be put to a good use. Police are good people. All right. Fresh Air Fund Sharp Reservation. Resolved upon recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education authorizes the Board President to sign the hold harmless agreement with the Fresh Air Fund Sharp Reservation.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Health and Welfare Services, a motion to approve the following contract for health and welfare services provided to resident pupils attending non-public schools in other districts for the 17-18 school year. This is for a prorated for Irvington.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Safe Havens, a motion to approve the contract with Safe Havens International to visit the Yorktown School District on March 27th and 28th, 2018, to provide the district with school safety and security consultation, such as observing drills and conducting presentations to the administrators and staff. Contract cost not to exceed $15,000.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Middle school. A motion to approve the contract with EDU Trips for the Mildred E. Strang school trip to Philadelphia on May 30th, 2018, pending receipt of required insurance documents.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That sounds like a wonderful trip. We have PIPs. A motion to approve the Yorktown Congress of Teachers professional improvement proposals listed below, and we have Yorktown Congress of Teachers CTA TA proposals as well.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Special ed, a motion to arrange the following special ed placements as of February 12th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, gifts, grants, and donations. A motion to accept with gratitude the following gifts, grants, and donations. $4,199.99 from the Huskers Club for the purchase of a Big Bubba Elite batting cage for the varsity baseball team. $3,450 from the Huskers Club for hotel and transportation for the varsity lacrosse team. $1,915 from the Science Research Foundation for a 70-inch TV for classroom presentations. It's probably bigger than the room. And Mohansic, $145.35 from the Mohansic PTA for material to support a TV monitor.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We thank everybody for their generous donations. The Huskers Club is a wonderful partner, as is the PTA and the Science Research Foundation. So we're up to board comment. Where do I want to start? Pete, I'll start with you.
Just another great night with our students, and they did a fabulous job. And again, to me, it's still one of the things I look forward to when I come here. So, and just another great job with the presentations, Lisa and Tom. So,
Mike?
Yeah, the Olympic spirit was very enjoyable, and I also would like to give some kudos to Dr. Hatter. Many of the things that you brought to the district not so long ago really have taken hold, and I think that's a real testament to your leadership. Everyone's talking about eSTEAM, which was your creation. They've even woven in your 2020 vision for 2020. And those things don't go unnoticed. So congratulations, great job on the whole team. Terrific.
Well, tonight was very special. As a parent of a Cromponder, I know the amazing things that they're learning at Crompond. Though he's busy watching Shaun White probably just about now. But they're all, it's a very special place, and I'm so happy that they're learning these wonderful things at such a young age. When we went to the Rio Olympics 2 years ago, there's truly no better platform for global citizenship, and I'm really happy. And again, kudos to Tom for a wonderful budget presentation.
Yeah, I mean, what a unique idea tonight. I saw something tonight that I've never seen before, and I thought it was wonderful. You see eSTEAM intertwined. I saw it in the artwork, but I also saw it, I don't know who came up with the idea, but the bobsled in and of itself was eSTEAM at its best. So it was, I don't know if it was the teachers or the students, but trying to figure out what do we use to make, an apparatus that would symbolize a bobsled. So that was wonderful and really enjoyable. And again, thank you, Tom and Lisa and David, for continuing our series with the budget and updates on the education and data plans. Thank you.
Lisa?
So as usual, my favorite part of the meeting is the kids, and that music that they played could have been like a CD or something from your phone that you would play in a spa as you're sipping a glass of wine. Not that I do that, but it was like real authentic music, and it's amazing that comes from Crompond students. I mean, it just shows what they're so capable of when they have the right tools. And it's just a credit to what we provide to them here in Yorktown. And to Tom and Lisa and David, no matter what questions are thrown at you, you have the answers, and it's You guys are amazing as well, and thank you for tolerating me and my questions. I really appreciate it.
You're new. We don't like your questions. That's how you learn. I just, when people say, oh, Common Core is awful, look what it's going to do. No, it doesn't. Look what you can do when you enhance education, and that's what teaching and real learning is about. It's about enhancing everything, and I am just so proud to be part of this district because they always go above and beyond to make it special for the kids. And these are lessons these kids are going to remember all their lives. So it's such a wonderful learning experience, and I thank you guys for leading them down that path. So, Ron, Lisa, Tom, anything? All right, we're good? All right, we're up to public comment. Anybody wishing to speak? So can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all, good night.